Porch pirates chose the wrong house. They didn't know who lived there. It started like any other afternoon. Quiet street, empty driveways, families still at work. But two men in a beat-up sedan were circling the neighborhood with one goal: easy targets. They thought no one was watching, that this would be just another quick grab, a package here, a box there. No resistance, no cameras, no consequences. But then they pulled up to his house. They didn't know who lived there, didn't know what he'd been through, didn't know he'd already been hit before, and wasn't about to let it happen again. By the time they stepped onto his porch, he had eyes on them. And what happened next wasn't just about stolen mail. It was about taking back control, one trap at a time. This isn't just a story about thieves. It's about a man who turned the tables, and what he uncovered when the authorities failed to act, because this time, someone was ready. What would you do if no one came to help and the criminals kept coming back? It was a modest neighborhood, lined with aging oaks and two-story homes with porches that all looked the same. On the surface, it was the kind of place where nothing ever happened, the kind of street where people waved from across the yard, shared weekend barbecues, and left their doors unlocked without a second thought. That's exactly why Marcus Davis moved there. After 20 years in the Army, Marcus was ready for quiet. He didn't need noise or chaos. He needed peace, a place to heal, physically, mentally, spiritually. His final posting had left him with a torn knee, chronic insomnia, and a deep distrust of anything that looked like disorder. When he bought the beige brick home on Cedar Brook Lane, he thought he was closing a chapter, starting fresh. He had his routines: wake up at 6 a.m. sharp, coffee black, daily walk, grocery store twice a week, mail collected every day at 4 p.m. sharp. His world was built around order, and that's exactly how he liked it. But over the course of a few weeks, that quiet routine began to unravel, slowly at first. A missing package here, an opened Amazon box tossed in the bushes. At first, Marcus assumed it was a delivery error. He even filed a complaint with the carrier. But when his neighbor across the street, an elderly woman named Mrs. Green, mentioned that she was missing a package too, something shifted in his gut. Still, he let it go, told himself it was a fluke. Then it happened again and again, until one Wednesday afternoon, Marcus stood at his doorstep, staring down at the remnants of a shredded cardboard box that once contained a brand new medical brace he had ordered for his knee. Gone, ripped open, nothing inside but plastic wrapping. No note, no knock, no help. That was the moment he realized something was wrong, not just with his porch, but with the entire system meant to protect him. He reported it to the police. They told him they'd send someone out when available. A week passed. No one came. He asked his HOA to install community cameras. Their response? It's not in the budget right now. So Marcus did what he'd been trained to do: observe, prepare, act. He dug into security forums, watched late-night YouTube videos on motion-triggered recording systems, even consulted an old friend who worked in private surveillance. In less than a week, Marcus had transformed his home from a quiet corner lot into a digital fortress. 2 cameras above the door, a motion sensor hidden in the flower pot, and a small blinking LED light disguised as a doorbell. But it wasn't just about cameras. It was personal now. He started documenting everything: license plates, timestamps, even the exact dates of every missing package. His once peaceful front porch had become the stage for something far bigger than petty theft. It was now a war zone, and Marcus was ready to fight back. That's when he noticed the car, a faded blue Chevy Impala, dented on the left bumper. He first spotted it idling near the entrance to the cul-de-sac. Then again 2 days later, this time moving slower, windows cracked just enough to peer out. He knew what he was looking at. This wasn't random. They were scouting, testing the neighborhood, looking for patterns. Marcus had seen this before, overseas, in places where lives depended on vigilance. And the sick feeling in his stomach wasn't paranoia, it was instinct. They would be back, and this time, he would be waiting. Chevy Impala returned on a rainy Thursday afternoon. Marcus had just come back from physical therapy, his brace still stiff around his knee, when the alert buzzed on his phone. Motion detected, front yard. He pulled up the live feed instantly. There it was, same car, same dented bumper, same two figures in hoodies, only this time they didn't just idle. They parked, engine running. One guy got out. Marcus leaned forward, heart pounding but controlled. He muted the TV and turned off all the lights. On the screen, the man crept toward the porch, a hoodie drawn low, something metallic glinting in his hand. Maybe a crowbar? Maybe a box cutter. Marcus didn't flinch. He let him get close. Too close, because that was part of the plan. As the thief reached for a small decoy Amazon box Marcus had rigged just that morning, the porch sensor triggered a silent alarm, and instantly, two high-resolution cameras snapped 10 frames per second directly to the cloud and Marcus's secure drive. The man didn't even notice. He grabbed the box and bolted, racing back to the car like it was just another clean job. But this time, it wasn't. Marcus had everything: time-stamped footage, plate number, clear images of the driver and the runner, even the exact moment they laughed while driving away. He filed a report the same day, hand-delivered it to the local station. And again, silence. No callback, no patrol, no follow-up. So he turned to the HOA again. He emailed the president, Ms. Judith Hensley, attaching photos and video clips with a detailed account. Her reply? While we understand your frustration, the HOA is not responsible for crime prevention. Installing private surveillance without architectural approval may violate Section 4B of the Community Agreement. Marcus stared at the email for a long time. It wasn't just dismissive, it was a warning. He wasn't just being ignored, he was being threatened. That night, he couldn't sleep. The neighborhood had changed. The silence wasn't peaceful anymore. It was hollow, like everyone had decided to close their blinds and pretend the wolves weren't circling. Marcus stood at his window for hours, watching, thinking. And then he made a decision. If no one else would do anything, he would escalate. The next day, Marcus installed a bait package laced with a GPS tracker. He embedded it inside an old speaker box and set it gently on the porch, just beneath the welcome mat. Then he parked his truck 2 blocks over, waited inside with a thermos and binoculars. 2 hours later, the Impala came back. This time, it was faster. A clean grab and dash. The box was gone in under 10 seconds. Marcus smiled. He opened his tracking app. The red dot moved. They were heading west, down the freeway, over the bridge, into the industrial district. He didn't follow, not yet. Instead, he compiled the footage and tracker data, burned it all to a USB drive, and mailed it, anonymously, to the HOA board, the police department, and a local news tip line. Then he waited. Days passed, then a week. Nothing. The next day, Marcus went to the HOA clubhouse. Walked in mid-meeting. He placed a folder on the table, photos, maps, times, and license plates. "I've been patient," he said. "I've done the work the police wouldn't. I've followed every protocol, yours and theirs. And this is what I get? Warnings about camera angles while we're being targeted?" Judith adjusted her reading glasses, flipping through the pages without emotion. "You're creating panic, Mr. Davis," she said coolly. "There's a process. If you'd like to submit a formal complaint." "I don't need a process. I need action. We're not law enforcement, and we've had no other reports of theft since your incident." That word, incident, burned into Marcus's ears. He leaned in close. They came to my porch at night. They looked straight into my camera and laughed. What are you going to do when it's your porch next?" She didn't answer, and neither did anyone else. So Marcus took the fight to them. He posted flyers across the neighborhood, started a digital neighborhood watch group, uploaded edited footage with timestamps to a shared Google Drive. Within 72 hours, 5 other neighbors came forward, 3 with thefts, 2 with vandalism, and 1 who said she'd been followed while walking her dog at night. The HOA? They issued a formal complaint against Marcus, claimed his flyers violated community signage regulations, gave him a $250 fine. That's when Marcus decided, no more warnings. He contacted a local investigative journalist who ran a blog covering community corruption. He sent over everything: emails, videos, fine notices, even a voice memo from a neighbor whose cameras caught the HOA president's son in the back seat of the Impala. Within a week, the article dropped. Theft, silence, and retaliation inside one suburb's HOA nightmare. The story spread. The HOA held an emergency meeting, and 2 days later, Marcus received an official notice: cease unauthorized surveillance or face legal action. He smiled, because now it wasn't just about stolen boxes. Now it was about accountability. The article had stirred something: attention, curiosity, outrage. But it also brought heat. Marcus started noticing things. Not just the occasional car slowing near his driveway, but real, targeted harassment. 2 nights after the article went live, his garbage bins were overturned. His truck tire slashed. Someone sprayed "snitch" across his mailbox in red paint. He reported it all. Nothing happened. The HOA accused him of fabricating it to stir drama. The police said the evidence was inconclusive. That's when Marcus made a decision he hadn't made in years, one that stirred a part of him he had hoped he left behind. He went to the attic, opened a metal footlocker, and pulled out an old military-grade trail camera. No Wi-Fi, no wireless signal, just a high frame rate, night vision beast with one job: see everything. He set it up under his porch light, disguised it inside a garden gnome. Then he waited. On a Friday night, just past 2 a.m., it happened. The camera caught it all. A group of 3 men, one wearing the same hoodie from the porch incident, approached his house. One carried a small gas can. Another held a brick. They weren't there to steal. They were there to send a message. Marcus had expected retaliation, but not this. Not arson. As the man raised his arm to hurl the brick through the window, Marcus acted. He triggered the floodlights, unlocked his truck alarm remotely, and stepped out onto the porch, armed. No weapon visible, just a high-powered flashlight and his phone, already live streaming the moment to the neighborhood watch group. "You're being recorded," he said firmly. "This is your last warning." The 3 froze. The one with the gas can dropped it. The hoodie guy muttered something, panic in his voice. Then they turned and ran. Marcus didn't chase. He didn't need to. He had everything. Within minutes, the footage was live. Within hours, it had gone viral in the local community. A reporter picked it up. A city councilwoman reshared it with the caption, "Why are homeowners protecting themselves better than the system protects them?" But that wasn't the most explosive part. 2 days later, a package arrived at Marcus's door, hand-delivered. No label, no return address. Inside was a USB stick. No note. Against his better judgment, he plugged it into a clean, wiped laptop. It contained HOA internal emails, dozens of them. One thread in particular made his blood run cold. Judith Hensley, the HOA president, had been covering up complaints about the Impala and similar thefts for nearly a year. Not only that, her own nephew was identified in several of the photos. She had buried the evidence, misled residents, and used HOA fines to silence whistleblowers. The most damning part? An invoice for a private security firm billed to the HOA listed Marcus's address as a known agitator. She had hired private muscle to intimidate him on the HOA's dime. That was the breaking point. Marcus sent the files to the journalist, then to the police, then to an attorney. This time, people listened. Within a week, an official investigation was launched into HOA misconduct and misuse of funds. Judith resigned. The HOA board was dissolved. But that didn't undo the fear, the sleepless nights, the fact that Marcus had once stood, in the dark, face to face with people who had planned to burn his home down for speaking out. He didn't feel victorious. He felt changed. And the most haunting part? The men who tried to set fire to his home were never caught. But Marcus wasn't afraid anymore, because now everyone was watching. Marcus stood in the ruins of what used to be his peace. The fire never came, but the fear had scorched everything. The porch, once a symbol of safety, now felt like a reminder of what could have been lost. The cameras still blinked, the floodlights still worked, but something inside him had shifted permanently. He hadn't just survived a battle. He had exposed a war, a silent one, fought in suburbs, waged with silence, intimidation, bureaucracy, and apathy. The kind that makes good people feel small, that tells victims to wait, to follow rules that don't protect them. After the resignation of Judith Hensley and the disbandment of the HOA board, Marcus found himself approached by neighbors who had once looked away. Mrs. Green brought him cookies. A family on the corner who had never spoken to him offered to help repaint his mailbox. One man cried, said he had nearly sold his home because he thought he was the only one being targeted. They weren't alone. They had just been isolated by fear, by shame, by a system designed to minimize accountability. Marcus didn't feel like a hero. He still had flashbacks, still triple-checked his locks, still kept the trail cam up just in case. But he did something else too. He started a nonprofit, Porch Watch, a neighborhood advocacy and digital surveillance support network. It offered residents advice on securing their homes, filing complaints, even tracking illegal HOA behavior. Within 3 months, he had over 10,000 subscribers to his weekly bulletin. People were hungry for truth, not just about porch pirates, but about the way small systems can be weaponized, turned against the very people they're meant to protect. What haunted Marcus most wasn't the crime, it was how many people accepted it, how quickly blame was shifted, stories rewritten, victims turned into threats. Because he'd seen this before, in war zones, in fractured cities abroad, places where justice was measured by silence and fear kept people obedient. He never imagined he'd see it again, in a quiet American suburb. Now, every time Marcus steps onto his porch, he scans the horizon, not for cars, not for packages, but for something deeper, for signs of a society that remembers what happened, for neighbors who refuse to look away, and for others like him, watching, waiting, preparing to speak when no one else will. Because porch pirates were just the symptom. The real crime was the silence that protected them. And maybe the question isn't, why did this happen? Maybe it's, how many more will it take before we finally say enough?